The cost of college keeps going up. And let's be honest, like if you're just relying on only a 9 to 5 to pay for everything, you're stuck until you can figure out how to create those income streams.
Welcome, investor, to another episode of Passive Income Adventures. We got Nate Dodson with us today. He is from crowdfundinglawyers.net, and he is doing something very innovative with sponsors' ability to raise capital, but also for passive investors to be able to get involved in more deals than they could before. There were some rules that were changed by the regulatory agencies a couple of years ago, and we're really now at the forefront of new ways that people can take advantage of more investing opportunities in their Main Street rather than Wall Street type of role. Nate's also a really good example of having achieved passive income retirement and then having that opportunity to step back and say, how do I really want to live the rest of my life? How do I want to spend my time? How do I want to contribute, give back, and be productive while at the same time protecting myself from anything that might happen that's a little bit unexpected? It's where I always encourage us to be. Do we want to retire? Maybe, maybe not. But if we had to retire, what would we do? Would we be able to take the curveball that life offered us and keep going? And that's what Nate shares in his story here. So enjoy. We have Nate Dodson on today. Nate is a crowdfunding attorney with a pretty impressive passive income story. And this is a show where we teach you how to make the money and pay for those passive income adventures and also to find the time to do it without getting into a second rat race after you leave your first one. So, Nate, I'm super excited to have you on because I find that you are a great lawyer to talk about legal stuff without sounding like a boring lawyer. So, can you give us a little bit of your background on how you got started down this path of passive income, real estate investing, and how that's affected your ability to do what you want when you want?
Well, sounds good. And to start, yeah, I'm an attorney, but even more so, I'm an entrepreneur. Creating active investments, buying businesses, starting businesses. That's the fun part of life because it really does come down to that multiple streams of income. And that's kind of the secret sauce of becoming financially independent, where you can do whatever you want at that point. So I started my career actually in financial investments, like a stockbroker when there was a stockbrokers, have helped as compliance of lots of registered investment advisors. And that just rolled into really being affiliated with quite a few different investments and putting them together, helping structure them, helping get them lost. And launched, and I always kind of had a different spin because I came from a sales world. So I was very used to talking to investors and how that process really works. And after a couple of years of that, I realized that for a lot of our clients, they'd rather have a partner, somebody that's sitting there side by side that has the incentive to make sure that the business, the real estate, the opportunity goes successfully rather than the traditional lawyer of, you give me a call, we talk for 6 minutes, you're getting a bill. So completely took a different approach to my legal practice, really grew a sizable law firm just doing that alone. But as part of that, I've been part of the GP cruise of acquiring 20, 25 different multifamily properties. I've bought and sold multiple law firms at this point and keep starting new businesses along the way. But the whole goal of all of this is to create those machines that creates the income from different areas. Sometimes things go sideways and other times things are going amazingly, but really at the end of the day, to create that financial independence where now I do everything because I love it. So that's kind of the big goal that I think everybody should be having.
Having the choice and the option to work, we talk about that a lot on the show. For those people who've been listening, I often share, that close family members of mine had some difficulties, meaning that they could no longer work due to disability, death, just some hard stuff. And what ended up happening for me was I saw, oh, I need to have a safety net. I need to be able to take care of myself or to take care of my family if something happens to really our single stream of income or one and a half streams of income with his job and my part-time job. Where did you get started there? Because most lawyers I know, they get into law because they want to make a lot of money and they don't realize that they have to be entrepreneurs and go drum up their own business. I mean, they see the billboards and they see the ads and somehow they think that they're just going to be in-house counsel and they're going to be rich. The wealthy lawyers are the ones who go, and drum up business as entrepreneurs. So, where do you think that disconnect is for most lawyers? And did you catch that from the beginning to be an entrepreneur, or did that take you a little while to be like, oh, I thought this was the easy path to riches, just show up at work every day and be rich?
Well, comically, I was a stockbroker through the internet stock bubble. And when it crashed, I was living in Austin. I was selling people technology investments, and it all kind of went away. And to say, well, sometimes your safety net just gets ripped out from under you. That's exactly what happened. And I had to figure out, well, what's next? And my thinking was exactly as you just said. I know lawyers make a lot of money. How about I just go do that? And that's, I mean, that's, you nailed it. And then I got into the practice of law. I worked at a law firm for a good year and then really got that entrepreneurial niche of realizing that I like being the business development guy. I like creating stuff out of nothing. I like being actively involved. So after I left the law firm, I just got out there and started shaking the bushes and knowing that you have to be able to build wealth beyond just your time. And at least for myself, that was the more attorneys that I could hire, the more that I could keep busy, the more successful my business was. But at the end of the day, it's the same consideration as any passive investor is you want to replace your active income. And in fact, you want to be able to grow it even greater than what you're getting from going to that jobby job.
What inspired you to be a stockbroker back in the beginning? And how did that experience affect your affinity for real estate? Because there's a lot of battles that we hear like, oh, stocks are better. You want to do better than you're in the stock market. And I see a lot of battles in my field between tech startups and real estate. Like, if you're going to be investing privately or in private equity, most people who invest in our deals started out with tech startups because that's the world that they were in. So what was it about, like, I should be a stockbroker? And then after you left that practice, what was it about stocks that was like, maybe I should try real estate?
Well, I grew up with a very investment focused family going back
Mm.
generations. My father was a physician who retired at the ripe old age of 47 years old because he knew how to invest well. And I just remember, I mean, like the bedtime stories was reading the Wall Street Journal. And I got like just in constant learning from my family of if you want to make the money, you have to learn how to work with the money, invest the money, grow the money. And so that was the real push and drive to become a stockbroker. But very quickly, I realized it wasn't about allocating investment funds and doing the analysis and everything. It was just about sales and learning how to sell something and banging on the phone and opening up opportunities. And that's kind of where that entrepreneurial drive really started because you make as much money as the effort that you put into it. And at the end of the day, if you're doing your own business, there's very similar considerations there. But so I started in the stock market. And with stocks, like you can't really invest for dividends. The dividends there, maybe it's 2, 3% for a good stock dividend on an ongoing basis. That's not going to create retirement income. Maybe you get some capital gains, but then you have to still sell the stock and pay those taxes. But really, to replace your income, it requires you to have ownership of the cash flowing businesses or real estate. And that's truly what creates the multiple streams of income.
So you felt like there wasn't the returns on the dividends weren't good enough. But what about living on, like, say, the 4% rule? Did that enter into your calculations?
You know what? It's good rules to live by, but I like living a bigger, better life than that. And the classic rules just you can do better. You can
I
take the money, be an active investor, invest into real estate that we've seen just bull runs happen, amazing things happen in the space, and you can do even better as long as you're focused on the right asset classes.
Okay, let's talk about the right asset classes there, because for the last couple of years, everybody's been pounding the drum of multifamily, multifamily, multifamily. And I felt a little bit disingenuous because I was raising capital for multifamily. So obviously, my social is going to be like, multifamily is the best, right? And for me, it was the best, but it wasn't the only because I didn't want to be over invested in just one thing. So we had a lot of private notes out there, had my little single family duplexes that were just mine only. So my cash flow off of those was pretty good, pretty regularly. So I had other things that I was investing in. So when we launched our fund, I said, we need to bring in everything that we're investing in for financial freedom for retirement. I don't want to just be beating the multifamily drum because there are a lot of things, even inside of real estate. And then there are also things I invest in outside of real estate. None of those really cash flow, right? It's like stocks that don't have great dividends or tech startups that never pay a distribution. So for me, it was let's offer the full gamut. And then as multifamilies started to struggle a little bit, I'm finding people are almost doubling down on, well, they heard the deals are coming, the deals are coming. So when you're talking about the right asset class, how do you define that and also be able to diversify your own portfolio wide enough that you're not over reliant on any one thing?
Well, I do have to admit, I've been a massive proponent of multifamily for a decade and a half. It's been an amazing run of real estate valuations, but now it's tough to find good opportunities. Last year, I mean, we still close as the lawyers about
Mhm.
170 different commercial or multifamily properties. So we do both
Mhm.
the securities and the finance side and the transactional side of things as well. And we've seen a decrease. I mean, the year before it was almost 230 different properties were sold. So it's like it's just tougher to make the numbers work.
Mhm.
And so you've got to now pay attention or and look at where is it easier to make money work? And that is the hard money lending, the private loan, even non-performing loans.
Yeah.
You get them at a discount, you reposition, you negotiate a settlement, and now they're cash flowing loans. Great opportunities there. I'm a huge proponent of the hospitality space right now, hotels,
Mhm.
because you
Hmm.
can buy into those in such a deep discount on a per key, per door basis compared to multifamily
Yeah.
that some of them keep being run as hotels, others are getting converted to multifamily, and I think there's a ton of upside in that space just because of the price points you can get in at.
Do you find that the housing shortage or the housing crisis that people are talking about, the way at the same time we're talking about demographics, there are less people being born. Our generation is the smallest generation for on except for our kids are even smaller. Right? Are you finding that everybody needs a place to live? I mean, that's always going to be true, right? But are we heading towards maybe an oversupply as people age, past the boomers are passing away, and we're not really having a lot of kids? Or are you finding that there's gonna be more need because of the non-traditional families? I don't know. I mean, I don't really know what to expect. I see some families collapsing into multi-generational households the way we used to do it 100 years ago. I see some people where everybody has to have their own house because they've got a mom and 2 dads or whatever, and that there's more need for housing. So where are you seeing this trending going as you're chasing down the multifamily path? Where is this evolving?
At least in my opinion, I think the housing needs continue to grow because the traditional you get married young, you start having kids, you're focused in your one family unit. It doesn't really work anymore with people staying single longer, not seeing like, well, I'm supposed to be married by the age of 25. No, maybe on average, the younger generation is living with their parents more, but then they still want to live on their own as well. So if you think about it, if people are now waiting until their 30s on average to get married, there's twice as many housing units that are needed during that time frame of life. And you know what? Those same people can't afford the big house, the white picket fence, what the older generation has been able to afford. And that's where a huge amount of the opportunity and boom, at least in my opinion, has really been there in multifamily and kind of the smaller dwelling opportunities.
So you mentioned the hotel conversions or like the single room occupancy where they might have a little kitchen in there, but even some of them are having like a shared kitchen or shared bathroom or shared communal areas. Are you seeing an uptick in that style of multifamily housing that's going to be less rent for because wages are not keeping up with housing prices. I have a couple of young adult children and they're looking at their career opportunities, college debt, and they're almost frozen thinking, I don't know how I'm ever going to be able to buy even one house, much less 5 houses in some apartment buildings. Where are you seeing that going for the kids, the younger people who want to be entrepreneurial? They want to go buy some apartments, but they can't even afford their rent because their wages are so low, or they went to college and their debt payments are so high. There's a real crunch right now. How's that affecting the market?
I think these smaller units, the studios, is definitely the biggest demand right now, and it continues to grow because there's an unaffordability of
Mhm.
the housing, of the single family homes, which is truly unfortunate for our country and the people and the generations that are trying to make it work. But the values of real estate keep going up. The cost of college keeps going up. And let's be honest, like if you're just relying on only a 9 to 5 to pay for everything, you're stuck until you can figure out how to create those income streams, and the only ways to do it is to take a second job, increase the value of your skills, starting a business or investing into more heavy cash flowing type investments to create those streams of income or that higher value for an hour of your time.
Are you finding that that gig economy that people are working in where, like you talked about, having a second job, having a second business? My son mentioned something, he's starting a YouTube channel, and I said, "Do you get frustrated?" He doesn't wanna start a YouTube channel. He wants to be like an IT guy who goes to his W-2 9 to 5, does his work, and then goes home in the evening. Like, that's his dream job, right? And he says, "I feel like I have to start this YouTube channel just so I can make ends meet." And I said, "Are you frustrated that 40-year-olds are saying, oh, they just all want to be TikTok stars and take the easy way out?" And he said, YouTube and TikTok is not the easy way out. If it was the easy way out, all you 40-year-olds would be doing it for your businesses, but you complain about how time consuming it is and how hard it is. And then tell us we're taking the easy way out. And so I'm seeing that this gig economy, that's having a side hustle, having a social media, a content creation business, in addition to your job that you're having, and he opted out of college, but my older daughter is in engineering school and she's looking at all these loans and getting out, like, and they don't even make that much money. So you're finding that like this gig economy is affecting the way that people live and the way that the real estate market delivers product to their end user, which is probably a little bit younger than we are. Like our investors are our age, right? But our customers, our residents are typically younger than us in their late 20s to mid 30s.
I love the gig economy only because it is teaching people to hustle and create and do something besides their 9 to 5 that hopefully someday it is that income that eclipses that 9 to 5 and it allows people to have that financial independence that is so very important. And even if they're working the 9 to 5 to pay for ends meet, making sure that the rents are taken care of. But you know what? They're not saving for retirement. It's difficult to make sure that you have that money set aside. So I love the gig economy as long as they're also managing those revenues, that income stream, either in making passive investments or investing in themselves and still increasing the value of their time as well.
Did you find that as a young kid when your dad's reading you the Wall Street Journal as your bedtime story? I've never that's a one-liner if I ever heard one, but you felt like that passion of, "Look, my dad retired early, now he's not working." My kids have said this to me before when we bought a little rental together, and it's on a private note, so they don't have any management to do. It's just the money just shows up in their bank account automatically every single month. And one of my daughters said, it's really difficult because I see like this $150 a month is coming in. It pays my cell phone bill or anyway, my car insurance, but it's not enough to really live on. But I feel like it's kind of ruined me because now I'm like, oh, I just want more passive income and I don't want to have to go get the money first to be able to turn it into passive income. So as a young kid, being exposed to the same stuff that I'm exposing my kids to, did you find that that heated up your desire to go out and kill it and earn a lot of money so you can retire early? Or were you like, "Oh, man, this is gonna take forever. I wish I already had it."
I mean, I always had that same goal that every generation should. I want to do things better than my parents. And that gave me I want to retire, create that financial independence earlier than my dad. And he did it at 47 and golfed for 30 years.
Yeah.
That was the standard that I had set my goals on. But then I later on realized something. He stopped working early because he did not like what he was doing. So he felt like he had to get out of the rat race. I once I realized that, it kind of freed me from this self-imposed pressure of like, I
Mm.
need to retire early. I need to get it all said and done. To really, I want to love and enjoy every day of what I'm doing. And I want to be able to choose to get out there and continue to hustle. That change of mindsets created a whole
Mhm.
different way of living. And it didn't stop me from getting involved with all of these different entrepreneurial things, investment things, still focused on that, creating the stream of income that I don't have to work now because I've done enough of those things, but I love it and I choose to. And that's really, I think, everybody's goal at the end of the road, as long as they can choose to.
That's the key word right there, choice. When you like, I say when your dad quit his job as a physician and golfed for 30 years, that's some people's nightmares. I know, especially doctors tell me a lot. Like, I can go to 50%. I love being a doctor. I just don't want to have to be a doctor full time because there's a lot of stress and pressure. But golfing for 30 years, most people are like, oh, I don't ever want to do that. It's sometimes fun to golf for 6 months while you figure out phase two. So tell us what that looked like for you and you hit that point where you're like, "I don't actually have to work anymore. Do I wanna golf or do I wanna" like, did you have a transitional period? A lot of people who are going after fire report this, that they finally hit their fire number, and even if especially if it's a lean fire and they're still not living that great, they quit their job and they're like, "I don't know what I thought it would be better than this. It's a little depressing." What was your transition like where you realized, "I don't have to work. Do I want to? And if so, how?"
I love that you bring up fire, that financial independence, retire early. I have some great friends that have been on that track. I personally was on that track and I took a couple of years golfing 4 times a week. I only had to work on my business maybe 5 hours a week. It was a relaxed lifestyle, but it also didn't feel fulfilling.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't moving the needle, I wasn't pushing ahead, and frankly, a lot of the people that I've known that have had that fire approach, after a couple of years, they start thinking, "Well, I actually wanna get back to work. I want to do some consulting. I wanna be more involved." And I definitely went through the exact same thing, but at that point, it's becomes that choice. And now you can grow beyond just that singular mindset of, "I wanna retire and just be done with it," and then that's the end of it. No, there's still so much time and so much life that we need to make the most of.
Yeah, one of my guests on this show recently, she's in her 50s, and she told me, she said, "Life is just starting at 50." She says, "You have no idea what's coming up. It's the best part of life." And in this fascination that we have with raising our kids and all of these kinds of things, she's like, "That's mostly over, and the best is yet to come." And I thought, "Oh, that's a great way to look at it." So, did you have a moment like that? Like, tell me about that moment that you were like, "I can't keep golfing. I need what am I gonna go do?" Like, what was that trigger point for you?
It was okay, I love these light automatic. So it was honestly, it was I had a new opportunity land in my lap to
Mhm,
acquire a new law firm. And I had been just kind of half-assing it for a long time, not doing much, enjoying life, but at the same time wasn't really moving the needle or pushing ahead with anything. And so that's actually the opportunity that I had to acquire crowdfunding lawyers. And I made a decision that I was going to do it all over again, but I was just going to do it a different way.
mhm,
So I remember at some point I was taught this grid, and it's like you put all of your responsibilities and what you're doing into this. I love it, but I'm not good at it. I don't love it. I'm good at it, or I love it and I'm great at it.
mhm.
And as long as you can move your responsibilities, your time and your life into that, I'm great at it and I love it box, then it is that very classic saying of if you love what you do, you don't work a day of your life.
Yeah.
And
I
my reapproach, that's been my focus. And I have an amazing team that handles all those other boxes that I don't
yeah,
love or I'm not good at.
I love that. I love that. When people first have that realization, this is so funny when my kids say something to me like, "Oh, I realized that there are some things I love doing, but I'm not actually good at it. But there's some things I love doing that I'm pretty good at." And it's so fun to see that awakening. It's like, how do I want to spend my time? I also noticed, I mean, we just got back from hiking the Arizona Trail, and I thought I've seen people retire early on their passive income, but they don't have quite enough cash flow to maintain their current lifestyle. So for a few years while they're letting things compound, they'll go move to Latin America or something so that they can live pretty cheap for a few years. And they find that their drive just dies because not only are they now retired on their passive income, but they're in the part of the world that's about chilling, like that tropical kind of a lifestyle. And they can't wait after a few years to get back to the United States and start another business or to get another job, depending on what their background is and what they love, because they realize like, hey, this is pretty rough. And so when you have that realization, it's so fun to kind of watch that perk up in people's eyes. And I thought, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to get sucked into that golfing for 30 years or move to Latin America trap. We're going to go hike a long trail, right? But day after day, and people are like, oh, that's so hardcore. You guys are killing it. And I do not feel like I'm killing it. I really feel like I get up in the morning, I walk 10 miles, and then I go to bed every single day, day in, day out. I felt extremely unproductive and sadly unfulfilled. I thought that this would be this huge accomplishment. We're going to go out there, we're going to crush it, right? But we were hiking with kids and they were so slow. And I just didn't really feel like I was stressing my body. Parenting was the hardest thing that we did on trail, honestly. And so getting to that point where you can realize, like, this is what I want to spend my time doing because I'm good at it. That's a huge realization that I don't think a lot of people really have on their radar. I've never seen it in a quadrant like that before, but now I want to go to Canva and design it, right? So tell me a little bit more about that, where you learned that, where you heard that, and what did you decide you were really good at and you wanted to spend most of your time at?
So I learned this in it's an organization of entrepreneurs called, well, the Entrepreneurs Organization, EO. And it's a group of like 25,000 entrepreneurs around the world. And every month we get together in this little group and you're just there with like minded people. And I'm a huge proponent of masterminds and group learning and kind of those educational investment networks. We participate in so many of them. And that kind of four quadrants came out of one of these EO sessions. And it's tough to at first like put everything that you're doing into the little boxes. But then I realize I'm just kind of going back to what I enjoy doing, which is dreaming with people, how they can reach their goals, they can find their financial independence, how they can start wherever they're at and reposition their focus, their lives, their goals to make whatever dreams happen. And that's literally what I do every single day when I'm talking to new clients, new prospects, working with people like, okay, we are provide a legal service about today, but I don't care about today. Where do you want to be in 5 years? And that's the fun conversation.
Yeah, and not enough people are having it, especially young, hungry entrepreneurs who are chasing financial freedom. Do you look at that? Do you think, man, that was fun back then, but are like, I wish I could go back and do it again? Or you're like, no, pretty glad I'm not doing that anymore.
It was a grind. I mean, I when I started my law firm, I had a four-bedroom house in Las Vegas.
Hmm.
And 3 of the bedrooms were offices with people that were working with me in there. That's just the way that I started before I was like, "Okay, the wife was, 'We're having a kid. This has to end. Get out.'" And it was at that point that I had to grow up a little bit and get in office and be a lot more formal about it.
Yeah,
Uh,
I definitely like the forward thinking stuff better. Like, where am I going? Not nostalgic about how things were because it wasn't that great back then either, right? It's like when people come up to you and they say, "Oh, your little kids enjoyed this while it lasts because it goes by so fast." I'm like, "I sure hope so." But I did love what you said about watching your dad hate his job. I would watch um, people hate having their little kids and wishing that time away and thinking, "How do I make the most of this?" So, like, tell me so this ties into, like, crowdfunding lawyers, when you acquired that, like, where was that decision-making matrix when you're looking at, "Hey, I wanna buy this new law firm?" Was it just because you're pretty bored, or was the opportunity like, "Actually, this is kind of exciting," And to say like, I don't want to wish away a job. I want to work because I want to. Like, how did all that come together? You made the decision like, I'm gonna go do this thing.
It was really more than anything the opportunity to do it again, but do it better. When I started my original law firm, Dodson Legal Group, I grew it myself. It ended up being multiple locations. My wife came in and worked with me. We did all kinds of different law. And then I had the machine just going. And that's when I really didn't have to do much, but I wasn't enjoying it. I mean, I
Mm,
would get in the office for those 5 hours a week, and I could tell you that's the most that I could be there.
mm,
And I still had that passion and drive to do more, but it was just a grind doing that. And so when crowdfunding lawyers became an opportunity, I didn't do it myself. I brought in a partner. And so my partner is Richard Robinette. And our deal is everything that I hate to do, it's your responsibility.
that sounds like my
Yes.
current business. They're
That's
like, "Wait a
literally how
second,
the partnership came together. I was
like,
like,
why aren't you"
"Okay, no, this is where it got comical." It was like, I've done documents, drafting. I've lived in that world for so long that my deal with them was, we're partners. We're 50-50. It worked for me for like 8 years before that. But here's the deal, I am never gonna practice law. I'm never gonna look at another agreement again. That's on you to manage, figure out, manage our team, and make it all happen, and I get to focus on, I guess it's in the legal world, it's rainmaking, the business development, working with new clients. And that's my role. I stay in my box and I love it.
So this brings up an interesting question because we talked about lawyers not wanting to be entrepreneurs a little while back. I've noticed, let's take the Daniel Priestley model, where he's a famous entrepreneur who says, I don't actually have any skills. He's like, I can write some books. I'm okay copywriter. He said, but really, I am just the face. I go out there and do business dev. And he goes, I'm the face. Some people come up to me, they say, I want to work with you. And he's like, oh, let me introduce you to Rebecca or Tom. They can help you out from here. Yeah, because he says that he has a hard time being an expert at that role and at that job and having a technical skill at the same time that he can be excellent at. And he chose to let his technical skills kind of fade away so that he could really focus on being excellent at the face of the business, the Richard Branson of the business. Have you found that as you're getting more into business development, that you're like, yay, because the technical thing before, it wasn't actually my thing, or do you miss it? Where are you on that spectrum?
It's just where your passion lies is where you should focus your time. I've spent there's some book that says to be an expert at something, you have to spend 10,000 hours at it.
Yeah.
I've spent my 10,000 hours triple that in the documents, drafting, negotiating with other attorneys, fighting things out. Been there, done that, but didn't really have a passion for it. I
Mhm.
still use all that skill set. It's not lost, but now it's just redirected towards what I really do enjoy. And then once I get the plan all together and okay, here's the step by step of how you're going to make your dreams come true. Now work with my team. They'll
Yeah.
help you the rest of the way.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful concept, and the way that I'm trying to structure my business as well, like, we sat down when we were doing our business planning meeting, and we wrote down a list, 3 things. I would do this all day for free. I can do this, but I don't really want to. I'll do it short term in startup mode, but I'm not gonna do this long term, and then there was a 3rd column of, I don't ever wanna do these things again. And everybody, oddly enough, came up with coordinating lists of things where it made it a lot easier to assign responsibilities because some of us love something and somebody else hates that. And I'm like, well, I'll do it. Right. And then everybody gets to be the hero because they're like, oh, I'm so glad I don't have to do this and you're going to do it. So that relationship in a business is so vital. And you have somebody who is able to take on that GM kind of ops role for you so that you can go focus on what you would do all day for free anyway. If you
Completely. I
could.
mean, it's the same thing as my little quadrants. If you can get everybody into that, they love it, they're good at it box, then everybody's living their best life.
Yeah. There are some things that I love doing that I'm really no good at. People say you love what you're good at. And I don't necessarily think that's true because I have some things that I love doing that I'm really not very good at. And I do them as a hobby, but really should not be doing that kind of stuff in business, even though I think it's fun. It's like, it's just not where my actual skill life. Do you have any things like that
That
you had to
was
give up?
me and lawyering.
Yeah.
I was really good at it, but I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm the opposite. I'm like, "Oh, I love doing that." And people are like, "Please," it's like, "Please stop singing." Like, "No, but I love singing." They're like, I don't love listening to you sing."
There's a concept that's it's a Japanese concept called ikigai.
Mhm.
And it's like where you look at your life and look at your focuses and you create these circles of what do I love doing? What am I good at doing? What does the world need? And what will pay me? And where all of those things meet is your ikigai. That's where you should try to live your entire life. And that's like part of their secret of living long, continuing to work, being involved, and having purpose in life. So just wanted to throw that out as it was a big concept and kind of a driving force in guiding my own life.
No, such good stuff, it's kind of finding your purpose, figuring out what you're gonna do. I mean, if you wanna golf for 30 years, great. Like, with my family members, did they wanna get terribly injured and spend the rest of their life like that? No, but the point is, like, now we have options to make we're making different options. Sometimes options are taken away from us, sometimes we're creating more options, but watching how they've recovered from that financially has been really inspiring to me because they had a lot of options taken away from them. It's like, did he wanna golf for retirement? No. He can't, right? But his life has taken a different path. And so I feel like getting into that and finding that true purpose and that true passion, and then sometimes that gets taken away and things have to turn on a dime. But I found that just going through that process of really drilling down into yourself and your true motivations helps you recover from the unexpected a lot faster. Have you seen that pay off in your life? That just the introspection and the process, even though things might not work out as you were planning on, a little curveball came in. How do you recover?
I'm a gambler at heart, and I
Yeah.
try to make bets that the odds are in my favor. Same thing with investing. Same thing with know, starting a business and in entrepreneurship, like everything isn't always successful. Sometimes you have to take a step back. Sometimes you get knocked down. And it doesn't matter at the end of the day, as long as you have the ability to say, that was a learning experience. Now I'm going to do it again and I'm going to do it better.
It's like getting to start a business and do it differently. It's kinda like people who have kids and then years later they have another set of kids and they're much better parents the second time around. And so you have an
You nailed
opportunity to
it.
build the business the way you want, yeah. Well, tell me about
It's
crowdfunding lawyers. Sorry, I feel like this business, the way you talk about it, it's kind of like reinvigorated you kind of into that second life as a business dad, right? The father of a business. Tell me about what you do and tell me a little bit more about what you said before about how it's the thing where you get to have those conversations that really inspire you and inspire other people. What do you do there? How can you help people?
well, sounds good. I've got, I think it's 10 attorneys, give or take. I've got my real estate division. We have our finance and securities division. And so we're just out there trying to help people reach their entrepreneurial dreams. Generally, to start a business, to acquire real estate, to invest in something, you need cash. There's always some components of financing, especially in the real estate world. And so we play that part of helping create the path to be able to fund whatever people's dreams or goals are, their business, their acquisitions, or syndications, whatever it is. And so, at least for myself, I play the role on the front end of we initial getting to know you with prospective clients, the diving in a little bit deeper into, okay, you've got this goal. Like, have you really thought about all of these different components? So, like with every client that comes to us, we spend about 3 hours with them, diving in a lot deeper into what are their goals, what is their plan, even down to who's your team members. Do you need introductions? We've been doing so much of this over the years that we're able to help kind of formulate, introduce, and make things happen. And then once we have, here's your plan to move forward now and going into the future, it's not until that point that kind of the technicians of the
Mhm.
business step in to form entities, draft agreements, negotiate agreements, making the deals happen. So that's
Yep.
kind of the beginning to end of our entire cycle.
Well, it's a really good point that you're making because how many beginner real estate investors, or even if they would just want to be a passive investor, call me up and they ask me legal questions that I'm not qualified to answer. Like, well, do I need an LLC? Can I invest through this? But then I heard about this other thing that somebody was telling me about that. I was wondering, well, what do I set up? Because then they'll go out and they'll set up the wrong entities the wrong way. They're spending money, but they feel like, oh, I took action and get started. And they're not really thinking through the process because somebody told them this and then they saw TikTok on that and they heard this. And then the technicians don't come in until the plan is formulated and they've looked at all their various options and getting a custom plan built for them. So that sounds like what you're there is to map out the best way to get them to where they're going to be using the technical options and then the technicians go out and actually perform it. Is that
Y
fair?
You nailed it, but something that you hinted at is oftentimes people think they need more than they actually do.
Yeah, way
If they're a
overcomplicated.
passive investor, like, don't worry about setting up all these complicated structures because you already have limited liability. That being
Mhm,
said, if you're an entrepreneur, a physician, an attorney, a higher risk profession, maybe you need asset protection. And that requires entities and structures to make sure that, on a long enough timeline, everybody gets sued. There are problems. It's inevitable. You want to be able to protect yourself. And that absolutely does require entities and certain structures to make sure that creditors can't reach those assets. And then the last step is estate planning and how you're going to take care of your family and who manages your estate and how all that works. So there's different reasons to bring together entities and holdings in certain ways. But if you're just getting started and buying a couple of investments, don't worry about it. You already have that limited liability protection by buying into an LLC or a corporation or whatever the investment requires.
mhm. Yeah, I feel like if you're really that worried about it, get yourself some insurance first. Like, that's the first stop on the train is some sort of umbrella policy to protect yourself, and then just take this one thing at a time. They hear about people who are doing these really cool, complicated things, but even that person didn't start out doing it that way, and it's so easy to get caught up in feeling that you're outwitting some system, that you're squeezing every drop of juice out, that really makes people end up taking no action.
Analysis paralysis. There's so many options. Yeah,
Yeah.
just the more important thing is to get moving forward with your investing, get moving forward with pursuing your dreams, get moving forward, like, period. Because that's the only way to reach your goals.
Well, for people who are wanting to just take action and they're not wanting to do it wrong, which I understand. Sometimes you look back and like, oh man, that really was a tax hit for me, and I ended up overpaying for that, or didn't have this protection that I should have had. I feel like when they're about to make a $50,000 or $100,000 investment, they didn't really spend like $1,000, $69 for a background check. Like they're stepping over these very inexpensive, relatively inexpensive things before they go and make a 5 or 6 figure investment. What's their first stop before they fill out documents and send that money off? I know you do a lot with the active investors helping us set up our legal structure so that we can raise money without going to prison, right? Raise money legally. Do you help the passive investor as well? Just figure out like, I don't really know. This is my first time doing this and I just want to make sure I do it right. But maybe they are at high risk. Maybe they do have a profession where they're making a lot of money. Maybe they own a couple of rental houses, things like that. Would they come in and say, "Hey, can we just have a consultation and make sure I'm going about this the right way?"
Definitely. Well, we kind of take a different approach with that. We will do more of a estate planning, asset protection analysis because for the passive investors, that's more the direction that needs to be paid attention to.
Mhm.
But you brought up a very important point about if you're investing 50, 100,000 plus, doing your due diligence. And that does start with every investment should have some sort of disclosure document. Most of the time, it's a private placement memorandum called a PPM, and it discloses certain things about the investment plans, the management, how the investment is structured. And that's a really good starting place to get to understand the due diligence of what you're getting into. But it's actually the beginning, it's not the end, because you should be doing background searches online. Do you know who's actually getting these funds? Do they have experience or are they just talking a good game? There's so much information that's available out there, including running background checks. I've seen it where, hey, I've done this, that, and the other, and I've got this amazing career. And now I'm just asking you for $100,000. And we can run some pretty specialized background checks and find out that they're still driving that 19 Ram that just looks beat up and they've had it for the last 15 years. And you start to question, have they really been as successful as they claim?
Mhm.
Public information. You see companies that they've been affiliated with, companies that they've managed and participated in. Have they done 1,000 things, but they're hidden? Well, maybe there's a reason why they're hidden and hiding. So it does take a little bit of that deeper dive, background checks, and due diligence to make sure you are putting your money with reputable people. And there's a lot of reputable sponsors, operators, entrepreneurs that are there to take care of their investors first. You just have to be able to weed out the ones that give a black eye to the entire investment industry.
Yes. Yes, I feel like sometimes we get caught up in the bad actors affect the entire industry, which I guess is not a bad thing. I feel like it motivates us to be more transparent and put out more information and more vulnerability because we recognize like the first when we were all new at one point and we had to just say I don't know what I'm doing. This might be a scam and just that nervousness. Like we remember it wasn't that long ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago that we were starting our journey and just having friends of ours go to prison for Ponzi schemes that they didn't intend to be a Ponzi scheme, but suddenly they're covering stuff up and trying to buy time. And I'm watching this like, okay, that guy started out as pretty squeaky clean and now he, and just all of that fear that we had and just trying to tap into that and be more transparent because we have seen some scary stuff happen. And so for me, when I first started getting into these 5-figure investments and I just sit back and say, okay, like, all right, how much I need to spend some money on vetting this out, talking to a private investigator or an attorney who can do extensive background checks. And I was always shocked. I'd call my attorney and I'd say, hey, I want to do this deal with so and so. Can we do a background check on him? He's like, I've nobody's ever asked me that before. I don't know how to do that.
Well, you need a better attorney. We got you covered
Yeah. Yeah.
because
It's
we've got
working.
some pretty specialized background checks where you see everything about somebody.
Yes.
And we run those on every single client we work with because it's the same. Like, we don't want to be associated with the bad actors either. I mean, problems roll downhill, and the
Yeah.
attorneys often are just right there in the middle of the road. I've, for better or worse, been a expert witness or been a witness in multiple like SEC and FBI cases, mainly because it's really funny. Like, attorneys, there's this duty of confidentiality. We never share information that people communicate to us,
Hmm.
but if somebody says, well, my attorney told me this or advised me this, it actually waives that attorney client confidentiality. And so the FBI, the SEC actually gets a hold of all of their email communications. And so multiple times, like, they've seen what I'm communicating
Hmm.
and they've like, hey, we know that you gave good advice. We know that you're not a party to whatever the scam is. Cause I just like noisy withdrawal. I'm out if I see a
Yeah.
scam happening. So it's been multiple times that I've been called in because of those bad actors. I
Hmm.
did live in Las Vegas, so it's totally like swimming with sharks at that point.
Yes, there was a big one there a couple of years ago. A lot of our associates were caught up in that one, and oftentimes new investors will come to me. The first thing out of their mouth is, "I got scammed by this Ponzi scheme," or "I invested in a legit business, but they didn't know what they were doing and it went under pretty fast." Or and they're feeling spanked from having made a bad decision and lost money. And the opportunity cost of staying out seems like it's costing them more than the money that they lost. So I wasn't really envisioning the conversation taking this turn, but just quickly, can you give somebody a piece of advice if they have fallen prey to some of the bad actors? How do they recover and get back into it? Because they know this is the way. They hear people like us saying, like, this has been the way for us, but they're too scared because now they don't trust their own judgment.
Okay, well, let me give you the best bad advice because it's exactly what attorneys do. because it happens. I've lost this money. I'm going to call this attorney. What can you do? And the response is, well, we can charge you a whole lot of money to pursue this because that's what attorneys do. But the first step that all attorneys actually do is they call the securities division of
Mhm.
the state that investor issuer is located in, calling the SEC to file complaints because without you having to spend a ton of money on lawyers, if it's truly been a scam and there's truly been some issues there, they will perform an investigation. They will perform an audit. And those regulators are there to protect the investors. They're really not there to protect the sponsors. That's why
Mhm.
if you're doing your own investment, it's so important to do everything right every step along the way because there's always a risk. Things go wrong. Investors get angry and they should complain to the regulators, and the regulators should do an investigation. And I've seen it plenty of times that those investigations result in, they call it a right of rescission. Hey, Mr. Sponsor, Mr. Operator, you've got to return all of those investors' funds, and we don't care where it comes from, but now it's your obligation and you can't bankrupt out of it.
Mhm. Yeah, it's basically like having a judgment against them that somehow legally you need to find the funds, pay people back. And I've seen that happen before, but I think what I've also seen happen that was always been very inspiring is somebody who never had that investigation result come down, but they just decided I'm going to pay these people back somehow and out of their own pocket for future investments, however they need to make it work over time, go ahead and make investors whole. And for me, it's like, I don't want to ask him like, have you ever lost money or have you ever lost investor capital? I just want to say like, what happened and how did you handle it? To me, that's a more important question because expecting somebody to be perfect, have a perfect batting average, pretty unrealistic. I just want to say like, what's your batting average and how did you handle it when things didn't go well?
And you really nailed it. I mean, I have always coached people on things go sideways and things go wrong. A big reason why these sponsors get a larger share of an investment, yeah, they get compensated for their risk, but anybody that's been in the business on a long enough timeline has had something go sideways. And this was what we coach people on, make the investors whole through future interests or do something for them. Because the second you say, I'm sorry, you have a complete loss and I'm not going to do anything about it, that becomes something that is required to be disclosed to investors for future deals also. And that really hurts your ability to stay in the investment business. So it really works out for both sides of protecting your investors, protecting your business. Make sure that the investors are taken care of as really a number one priority.
So a sponsor calls you and they say, we had a foreclosure or we had a short sale, we lost our investor capital. What do I do on the next deal? What are some terms that you can tell them to ask their attorney about to say, make sure that you do this and build that into your future documents so that they can recover from this?
I mean, it's just about disclosing to your attorney, this is what's happened. Here's what my goal is. And the attorney should be able to give the best advice possible. It is not about, hey, you should give 100% of something to the investors because it actually hurts the issuer, hurts the sponsors' motivation to see it be a success. But having some reasonable sharing of the risk and reward only makes sense. So it is a business call, a judgment call, and everybody should be in those situations consulting with competent, been there, experienced legal counsel of there's been these problems. What should I do to make sure that everybody is taken care of? I was practicing in Las Vegas during the Great Recession of 2008 to 2010, and everything went belly up in the real estate world at that point. Everybody lost everything. But the secret was still taking care of the investors, still communicating and being transparent with them. These are macroeconomic issues that I can't make any changes about, but I can make a commitment to you that I'm going to do something to make up what's happened to you in the future. And out of 50, 100 deals, there only ended up being one lawsuit out of all of my clients, all of these deals. And even with that one lawsuit, the investors lost. The issuer did everything right every step along the way.
Yeah.
And I gotta tell you, those investors lost another $250,000 just
Oh.
pursuing the legal action. So if you can avoid that, definitely do, both on the issuer side and the investor side.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that the future interest is something that I really like to see somebody be willing to do, especially right now when deals are struggling. I mean, the economy is a little, we were all expecting this, we were all waiting for it. We didn't know which deal would end up being the stinker when the tides turned, but I think toward the last couple of years, people are every time they're investing, like, are we at the top? I don't know. This one might be the one that goes down. And eventually, most people I know right now have at least one or two deals that are either not performing, meaning they're not paying distributions, or has had a catastrophic outcome with a short sale or some sort of a default foreclosure. So just being able to say, like, hey, Mr. Sponsor, how are you planning on handling this if it does happen before you ever put money in? People aren't asking that 2 years ago when they should have been. They're asking it now when it doesn't matter as much because almost everything that's been going down the hill, it's like they've already invested in it. So the time to ask those questions is before, and then see if it's in their disclosures. That's the thing. They're buried in there.
Capital calls, are they possible? Are they not possible? What do they require? There's a lot of capital calls happening kinda
Oh,
all
yeah.
over the place, and there's the right way to treat it and approach it and the wrong way. So there's a art form to making sure that a problem project makes it to the end of the line.
Yeah. We're making a lot of good stories right now as an investor
Yeah, I
community.
hate that this turned, like, super negative because there's so much opportunity out there. And you know what?
Man.
Problems create opportunities. Some of the best money, the richest people that I know today got started, took their hits, but started investing heavily during the Great Recession, 2008 to 2010.
Yep.
So it's like problems create opportunities, but it comes back to what we're talking about with that asset class. Where are you going to put your money next? Well, you got to be paying attention to what the economy, what those asset classes, what those properties are saying.
Well, this is a really good point because if we've been on the downside of a deal, the best way to make up for that is to pick up some opportunities at the trough. Because if I'm saying, if I was at the height, I bought something at height, it didn't go well. I didn't know which one it was going to be, but I knew that eventually something would happen when the economy shifted. And I'm looking at it, people are like, oh, so many opportunities coming up. But then you have the whiners who are saying, like, oh, but I'm the one who lost that deal. I'm the one, my deal is the one who created that opportunity for somebody else. I say, well, you know what? I want to be, if I'm on one side of it, I have to be on the other side of it. I'm out there still looking for opportunities. So I guess this is the way to recover. To say, like, if my deal provided an opportunity for somebody else to get a great deal because it didn't go so well, I want to go out there and I want to help somebody else out by taking a deal off of their hands that might not be going well if they need some help. Because nobody likes that outcome. And that's part of real estate. Somebody gets in trouble, somebody else comes in and solves the problem. It's sometimes nobody wants to have a problem that needs solved, is my point. But if you can somehow recover emotionally, psychologically, and say, there are opportunities coming in. And if I got spanked on this one, I'm going to go out and be rewarded on the other end. And that's the attitude to go in with that mindset rather than feeling like, oh, man, I'm no good. I can't trust my own judgment. Maybe I'm not cut out for this and quitting. That recovery of recognizing the opportunities is really the key there. And you probably have a lot of clients right now who are going out and making that a reality as the things start to turn.
It is exactly what I was saying. Like we all get our lessons from our problems and our losses. That's how we grow as people, investors, entrepreneurs. But it is all about getting up, doing it all over again, and just doing it better.
Yep. Batting average, not perfection here. What was I going for? But so you're doing some pretty cool stuff at crowdfunding lawyers. There's one combination product that we were talking about when we met a couple of weeks ago about how you have a fund for people who are accredited investors and want to invest more money so they can get the incentives for the higher return. And you've also got a companion product now that's been around for a little while, but I'm seeing it pick up in popularity, which is a capital crowd fund. Anytime you pool investor, anytime you pool capital, that's a crowd fund. But this is like an actual designated, legally designated crowd fund for people who want to put in less money or who are unaccredited, and we can still advertise all that. Can you tell me about what you guys are doing at crowdfunding lawyers to open up accessibility for these private placements to more people?
Sure. Well, we call it our side by side, where not to get too legalese, But with the Regulation D, Rule 506C, you can advertise everywhere, but you can only accept the accredited investors, the millionaire investors.
Hmm.
Then we have this flip side. It's called Regulation CF, or literally regulation crowdfunding, that allows everyone to invest, but you're capped at $5 million dollars per year that you bring in. But now the secret is run those side by side. And now you can raise as much money as what you need. Now you know that you're just capped at $5 million dollars from those non accredited investors, but it allows you to go beyond that $5 million, dollars, still get those multifamily, get the bigger commercial deals done by accepting everyone. It's taking that, the accredited investors, maybe 10% of America, maybe 5% of that is actually investing in these private projects, and now democratizing it to 100% of America can now invest. There's some, barriers of how much they can invest,
Yeah.
and that's kind of for the protection of the littler, smaller investors. But now all of a sudden it's like opened up the floodgates to, you can bring in everybody and allow them to participate on your investments too.
I love the concept because when somebody calls me up and maybe they're almost accredited, they're making like 250 a year between the two of them, and they want to put in say 50,000 because that's typically the minimum, and it is giving them terror fright. Like 50,000, that's a lot of money. But then let's contrast that to the other guy who calls me up. He says, "Well, can I put some money in?" It's like, "Yeah, we only have 50,000 left in this one." He's like, "Ugh, I hate 50,000. There's just so many of them, and they're so hard to keep track of who's paying distributions and whatnot. I will never invest less than $100,000." And so the guy who may, or maybe it's just barely accredited, they make $301,000 a year, right? And they're going to put in 50 and it's still a lot. And they're very, very nervous. I don't personally love that interaction. I don't feel good about it. And so adding a crowd fund to our 506C is something that I'm really excited about doing, but this hasn't always been a possibility. What changed that now you can run these things side by side?
In 2021,
Hmm.
the rules changed.
Okay.
Previous to that, this regulation crowdfunding, it was just created out of the blue in 2012.
Hmm.
But at the time that it was created, you can only raise up to $1 million, and guess
Yeah.
what? $1 million doesn't do much. That got expanded to $5 million in 2021. They also changed the way that if you run multiple deals, they call it integration, how it works with being able to do multiple offerings at the same time. So all of those rules changed in 2021. So that's why this is a new opportunity that frankly has never been there in the past.
Yeah. When they raised it to $5 million, I think we did our first syndication in like it was the end of 2018. No, end of 2019. And, oh, it was like a 506C syndication for $1 million. Is crazy, right? Because our lawyer didn't know crowdfunding was a thing, which would have been a perfect product for that because we only needed $1 million, right? And it would have been less expensive to set up, and we would have been able to take both accredited and non-accredited. And getting that raise structured was incredibly challenging. But looking back at the options that we have now, to combine offerings, to change from a B to a C, to now that the cap on the 5 million is higher. It's just kind of fascinating. I feel like they're really making some moves in the right direction to expand investing opportunities to more Main Street type of investors. Have you noticed, are you seeing that trend?
Unfortunately happening, but most
Mhm.
attorneys don't know about it.
Mm.
Even in the securities space or in the finance or the, you know, business formation space, they don't really understand how it works and what options and opportunities there are. So that's where we've been able to come in and say, here's something that's never been offered before, never been told that here's what you can really do. So we really are blazing that new trail to be able to set up these, now everybody can invest opportunities that nobody's honestly talked about in the past.
Yeah. And well, can you also talk about the crowd fund now that it's raised to $5 million? And let's take a smaller raise that somebody's doing that's like $4 million. If they're going to be just raising $4 million and they just want to do a crowd fund only, are they able to do multiple deals per year in that 12-month period, or can they only do one crowd fund per year?
They can do multiple crowd funds,
Hmm.
but they're still capped at $5 million. That $5
Oh, okay.
million cap attaches to who's the management.
Mhm.
and who are major control parties. Like if you
Okay.
own 20% or more of a business, it attaches to you.
Got
If
it.
you manage multiple investments, it attaches to you. But you could do 5 separate crowdfunding offerings, each raising $1,000,000 each
Mhm.
throughout the year.
Okay.
So it there still are those opportunities to do it multiple times. You just gotta pay attention so that you don't go over that $5,000,000 in the aggregate.
Perfect. All right. Well, I really appreciate you spending some time with us telling us about your passive income journey because I feel like these stories and hearing how other people have done it are really inspiring to the listener who wants to go out and recreate the same thing. They say like don't reinvent the wheel. Listen to people who've done it and just copy what they've done. And so you've set out a really good template here of not only creating passive income, retiring early, but also doing that while maintaining your purpose. That's a big problem in the community. They're like, I don't know if I want to retire. It's like you should be able to. And then you have the luxury of figuring out your new purpose after. So thank you for sharing that with us. How do people get a hold of you? And I always ask every guest, more importantly, like, why should people reach out to you after the show?
Sounds good. The easiest way to reach me is right at our website, crowdfundinglawyers.net, or just give us a call, 469-444-9999. And you know what? If it comes down to money, growing it, protecting it, managing it, we're in the finance business. So anytime you're considering investments, both on the passive side or the active side, reach out anytime. I love to have those goal setting discussions.
Yeah, and that's something very unusual for an attorney, you guys. So make sure you reach out because somebody who wants to help you actually plan out and not just sell you the most amount of complicated LLC structures they can is kind of unique in the space. And so definitely take them up on that. Nate, thank you so much for being with us. And we want to hear more about your passive income adventures as you're going along. Keep us updated. And I appreciate you offering that service to our listener.
Will do. Thank you so much for having me.
I always find it so inspiring to talk to somebody who has gone past the point that I'm at and they're able to look back and give me advice along the way. And I really enjoyed that conversation with Nate because not only has he been able to achieve passive income through perfecting a technical skill, getting out there working hard and investing smart. That's really the key to this and giving yourself enough time that you can build up enough cash from your active income to be able to then replace that active income with passive income. And then being able to say, hey, what do I want to do now? What do I want to do next? That's a stage of our lives that we were in last year where we got to kind of a low level of financial freedom. We didn't have to work anymore, but we weren't really sure how we were going to continue to grow our investment, to grow our financial future, and trying to figure out, like, okay, what do we want to do with our time now? And having the opportunity to just reflect on that and talk to other people through this podcast because I get to ask them whatever question I want for an hour. And a lot of that applies to what I'm working on because I know that's also the stuff that you are working on. So I really appreciate you joining us, hearing these stories. Hopefully, you're getting a lot of inspiration out of it and great ideas about ways that you can invest passively, but also work actively so that you can earn more money so that you have more to invest. Be sure to join us every Monday night at riseclubcapital.com, where we have a free club. We examine deals. If we like them, we invest in them together. If not, we learn something. And it's a great free networking and free education way to dive into this commercial real estate world and be able to hang out with other people who are doing the things that you might want to be doing. And it also allows you to try it on for size and see if it's a good fit for you. If you decide that you want to be a 100% passive investor and you're accredited, the millionaire investor that Nate was talking about, check us out at partnerwithrise.com where you can jump on a calendar invite, talk to one of us on the phone. You're not going to put a 5 or 6 figure investment in with somebody that you've never even had a phone conversation with. And so the way that we create those relationships and help you to be able to succeed financially by sharing the things that we're investing in that you can join in on is just to create a relationship. We're happy to help you by answering any questions you have about it, getting to know you, you getting to know us, and just really building that comfort level of being able to get your goals done, just like Nate was talking about in the episode. Be sure to reach out to him at crowdfundinglawyers.net if you have any questions about how to set up your estate, your asset protection, whether you're an active real estate sponsor or you're more on the passive side, he can help you figure out which direction you're going to go. Thank you for being with us. Be sure to let us know about your passive income adventures. We love to hear about the adventures you're taking and the creative ways that you're coming up with the time and the money to be able to pay for them. Until next time.